Before I start today, I just want to take a moment to recognise what's going on in the world at the moment and to make it clear that I stand with those who are protesting. Black Lives Matter, and the oppressed protesting for their rights will always be something that I support. I encourage you to get educated, to donate, to support those who are out there protesting for their lives. It's the least we can do. So today I'm going to talk about what I read in the month of May. The first book that I read was The Theban Plays by Sophocles. That includes King Oedipus, Oedipus at Colonus and Antigone. So overall I gave this 3.5 out of 5 because overall I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed Antigone more than the other two. Yeah, so this story is wild, even for like Greek plays that have some of the wildest stories you have ever heard. There is so much denial of obvious truth in this family. I can't handle them. The first play mostly tells us about how Oedipus finds out about who his family are, the fact that he killed his father and married his mother. So that's all very dramatic, but it's mostly just a lot of talking, which isn't a bad thing. I'm just, saying. And Oedipus at Colonus is about how Creon has now taken over and Oedipus eventually dies because he knows that that's where he's getting. His life is coming to an end and he'd rather it all happened, the way he wanted it to. He'd rather that he got to tell his children to like be happy and all that kind of stuff. And Antigone focuses on the character of Antigone, who is Oedipus's daughter, and she wants to bury her brother against the ruling of Creon, who is now in charge of Thebes. Is it Thebes? I always get confused about whether it's Thebes or Athens. It's one of them. So the story of Antigone is one of my faves. She's just one of my favourite Greek characters, one of my favourite tragic characters. She's literally just trying to salvage what little of her family is left. She's just trying to do the right thing for the people that she loves, and Creon is a dick and he locked her in a cave, so fuck him, I need to write a poem about her now. She can join my Cassandra poem and I can just be sad about girls in Greek mythology who weren't treated properly. The next book I read in May was Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I gave this 5 stars. I loved it. I read it really quickly, and I don't always tab books, I only do it now and then. It's either with quotes that I want to remember, or in this case, this is all the times that I laughed, as in like full body laughed, not just like snorted or like, like I laughed. That's wild. So you probably already know what this is about, but quick summary. Enemies to lovers about the son of the President of the United States and a Prince of England. I have decided that I am never reading another romance again because I cannot physically handle it. And honestly, why would I want to when nothing's going to live up to this? Nothing's going to live up to the relationship in this. Nothing's going to make me laugh like this did. Oh my god. Henry and Alex's relationship is genuinely just so beautiful. I love that you get to see them grow into their relationship. You get to see them realising that they actually understand each other really well, and it goes from just like, I really want to sleep with you, to like, oh no, this is actually love. Okay, unexpected. All the little intimate moments that we get to see, just the two of them communicating with each other, how they feel and how they experience their lives being in the public eye. It was just beautiful. And as I said, it's hilarious, especially a lot of the side characters, the sisters of both of the two main characters, and I've completely forgotten her name. Alex's pal, whose grandparents are the... You know what I mean. I love her. That's what matters. And overall, I don't have much to say. I just really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it, and I would definitely read it again. Just a reminder that it isn't YA, because a lot of people think it's YA. It's not. It's like new adult. But it's really good and I would recommend. The next book I read was As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. So I gave this 3 stars. It's quite a short book. It follows a family after the matriarch dies and they are travelling to another town to have her buried there, as it's the town where she grew up and it's where she wants to be buried. This is a stream of consciousness type novel, which I'm not usually a fan of, but I think it did work here. It helped show the grief that the family were going through and Daryl's deteriorating mental state. It switched between different points of view of members of the family and people who knew the family, and I think that made the stream of consciousness more palatable, as we don't get big long descriptions of things that happened in the past, like we would in books such as Mrs. Dalloway, and yes, that is my example always for stream of consciousness because that bored me. Here we got snippets and we saw how they linked the past to the present while they were grieving and while they were still actively doing things, as you know, they are transporting a coffin. And overall I did enjoy the story. It's still not a form that I particularly like, but I think that this book did it really well. The next book I read was Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. I don't know. I'm never gonna know, am I? I gave this 5 stars, mostly because it was just so fucking fun. It wasn't too complicated or hard to follow, which sci-fi that is actually rooted in science can be. And it's basically just a book about a rich white asshole who decides that he's going to make a theme park with real dinosaurs. But since they're really dinosaurs, naturally everything goes wrong. I liked that the characters were all very distinct and able to be traced throughout the novel. And there was good characterisation that made sense. The characters actually reacted in the ways that you would expect them to. Malcolm is a complete asshole and I love him for it. And Ellie Sattler is literally 3 years older than me, but she's the coolest person I have ever read about. If I could marry her, I would. Now I know it's sci-fi, but I don't know if it technically comes under horror, you know, what with all the attacking dinosaurs. But it definitely used tension in similar ways that horror books do. And I think that was perfect for the story it was trying to tell. It made it a lot more exhilarating and interesting. It made you want to keep reading. And I have no idea if the second book is as good as this one, but I'm quite excited to read it because dinosaurs. The next book that I read was All's Well That Ends Well by William Shakespeare, which I gave 3 stars. This is a comedy and it's basically about a girl who marries the guy she likes because the king says that she can, and he obviously reacts like, no, that is not happening. So she decides to trick him into actually being her husband and getting pregnant. That part was slightly disturbing, but anyway. I mean, it's a bit iffy because there's lots of sex jokes and innuendo, and I mean, there's kind of issues of consent around the whole it gets her pregnant thing without knowing it's actually her, but it is a Renaissance play, so you know, it's kind of what you'd expect. And overall it was fun. I liked that the women are manipulating the men who manipulate them, and it's just kind of a typical Renaissance I'm gonna trick you into being happily married type play. And honestly, Shakespeare has way too many of those. It's probably one of the easier ones to follow and understand, mostly because it's a comedy. And Bertram was kind of a dick, so I wasn't overly fazed by Helen's manipulation of him. I was just kind of like, let's see how this ends then. The next book I read was Hero by Michael Grant. I'm not going to summarise this because it is the last book in the series. Definitely major spoilers here if you're ever going to plan to get around to reading these. I gave it 4 stars and my brain is mush. That ending was wild. I had an actual meltdown. Like, I read the last page and I got up and walked into the living room and I just stood in the middle of my living room like, what just happened? My mum was like, are you okay? Like, I finished the book. I don't even know how to go about describing what it made me feel. I still don't really know what it made me feel. It was insane. So, okay, the actual book. I think the government reaction to the mutants being split was quite realistic, because there was people who wanted to just completely kill them, and there was people who wanted to help them but also kind of utilise them, which seems like quite a realistic reaction, to be honest. I enjoyed having some of the characters from Gone, the original series. I enjoyed having them back in the story without making them too central, because the story wasn't theirs. It was Shade's, it was Malik's, it was Cruz's, it was Decca's. But you know, Astrid, Sam, Adelio, Albert, all the ones who were mentioned, it's not their story, but they are in it because of course they would be. Not including them at all, I don't think would be true to the trauma that they suffered and the things that they went through, because if that was to suddenly start happening again, of course they would feel responsible and they would feel like they had to step in. So the fact that we got them stepping in this last book, I think was a really good choice on Michael Grant's part. I love that Astrid literally ripped Drake apart. It was art. It is what he deserves. I hope he rots in that little metal box in the middle of the ocean. And the ending. Okay, this is like major spoilers. I'm just reiterating that because it seriously is. I have no idea if Michael Grant was planning this from day one, but if he was, genuinely what the fuck, Michael? Genuinely. I think making it like it was all a program, none of this is real, is kind of a cop-out, in the same way that like it was all a dream is a cop-out. But at the same time, it does kind of fit with the story, because it doesn't negate everything that's happened. It doesn't negate how the characters feel. It doesn't negate all the things they've went through, because they still exist. They still feel things. They still have people they want to protect. And I'd say it's quite a unique explanation for the story that Michael Grant set up, because I think most people were kind of like, aha, it must be aliens. And then it wasn't. So that was kind of surprising, even though it was hinted at throughout like this entire book and the other two books in the series. And I don't know 100% how I feel about the ending in relation to the original Gone series, but as an ending to this trilogy, I think it worked. And the next book I read was Island by Aldous Huxley. I gave it 3.5 stars. My brain hurt just reading it, so that was fun. And it's written by the same guy who wrote Brave New World, except this is a utopia, not a dystopia. The whole book is basically just a discussion on how society should be morally, philosophically, and spiritually, and how we should raise our kids. I did like the world presented here, and how Aldous Huxley challenges Western norms and the scourge that is capitalism. However, as I said, it's not the easiest read. There's a lot of big words and confusing ideas, which doesn't make it the most accessible. And the idea of a white man coming into a brown society and idealising the brown natives didn't sit the best with me. It seems sometimes to be fetishising the way of life, and I don't think that's what was meant, but you know, these things can still be done even if it's not intentional. And it felt kind of reminiscent of how white people in the West have gone to Eastern and Middle Eastern countries and essentially said, yes, we will take your spirituality and all of these practices and take them into our society. So, I don't know, it just kind of felt a bit weird. I don't think there was any intention of that on Aldous Huxley's behalf, but I don't know enough about him to say that 100%. Just from what I read, it didn't seem like that. But at the same time, I don't know, I was just kind of like, oh. But also there is talk and discussion about colonisation and the West stepping in and changing things in these small countries, and I think that was definitely an important thing to talk about. So I think Aldous Huxley had some good ideas that he wanted to get across here, and also it was nice to see a book talking positively about a native culture and not kind of portraying them as savages, which a lot of books like pre-21st century do. Obviously there's still books that do it now, we're just more aware of it. So that was, you know, a positive thing about it. And the last book that I want to talk about, I don't have a physical copy of because I read it on ebook. And it is Quarantine by James Phelan. I think it's Phelan, it's Phelan. So I'm pronouncing that Phelan. This was also the last in a series that I started literally years ago, and recently I went through my Forever TBR and picked out all of the series that I've started and want to finish, and I have a list that I aim to finish a few of by the end of the year. And I will show you some of those books in my quarantine book haul that will be coming up soon, because I obviously have still been ordering books during quarantine, and I most So yeah, as I said, I was focusing on buying books to complete series that I've already started, because quite a few of them are ones that I started in maybe like 2015, 2016, which is a long time ago now, and you know, I just kind of feel like I should finish them so I can talk about them. And this was one of them. So I gave this 3 stars, which is a middle of the road for me. If I give a book 3 stars, then I'm saying it's a good book and I enjoyed it, but you know, it wasn't the best. It wasn't something that I was like super interested in. Just generally an all-round fine book, and that is definitely what I'd say about this one. It was a quick read and it was easy to understand what was going on, even though it's been quite a while since I read the second book, and I don't really remember what happened in the second one. I remember what happened in the first one, but not in the second one. So the fact that I could still understand what was going on was a good thing, but a lot happened very quickly. It was only 200 pages and that was on my phone, so it didn't feel like a lot of time was being given to the characters or the situations they found themselves in, which didn't make it the most compelling, and there wasn't much character development. Also, the main character, Jesse, is literally 16. Why is everyone talking to him and following him like he's a fully grown adult? He's 16, he's a baby. And we're not even talking about other teenagers following him, I'm talking like fully grown men with children. Then like there's a couple of girls that he ends up helping who are like his friends, and they're both older than him. And it's like, if I was in an apocalypse and a 16-year-old boy tried to like tell me everything to do, I'd be like, you're a child. Please sit down. You're also not from this country or this city. What is happening? So that confused me a lot and kind of didn't really help with my suspension of disbelief, because I was like, why? What's so special about this 16-year-old boy? But I did enjoy the world that James Phelan has built up throughout the series. I am a fan of sci-fi and books that deal with like outbreaks and contagions, which is probably not the best thing to be reading right now, but it is something that I'm just really interested in. I did enjoy the world that he had built up. And overall, I wouldn't say it's a bad series. It's definitely quite YA, but it's quick and short and fun. And that is my list of books that I read in May. If you've made it to the end, I'd love it if you could like, comment, subscribe, come chat to me in the comments or in my social medias, which are all linked below. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Happy Pride. Take care of yourselves. Bye.